So it appears that there was a bipartisan study done on the effectiveness of congressional members, and it appears that AOC ranked as almost dead last in her party and of the Democrats in terms of effectiveness. Now, this is a study that seems to only really have spawned articles from right wing sites. Even this one, the New York Post, I believe, is like a right wing dirtbag site, but it's Fox News, Washington Examiner, The Blaze. So this has definitely been run on pretty heavily to kind of smear AOC. But here's what it says. It says Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was among the least effective members of the last Congress, according to a new survey from the Nonpartisan Center for Effective Lawmaking, a joint project of Vanderbilt University and University of Virginia. AOC introduced a total of 21 bills, which the Senator defined as substantive, but that is where the story ends. Her legislation received no action in committees, no floor votes, and none ever became law, according to the Center, which takes its data from Congress.gov. She introduced a lot of bills, but she was not successful at having them receive any sort of action in committee or beyond committee, and if they can't get through committee, they cannot pass the House, Alan Wiseman, a Vanderbilt political scientist and co-director of the Center, told the Post. It's clear that she was trying to get her legislative agenda moving and engage with the lawmaking process, Wiseman added, but she wasn't as successful as some other members were, even among other freshmen, at getting people to pay attention to her legislation. When looking at the legislative effectiveness of all congressional Democrats, AOC was ranked 230th out of 240 Democrats. Among the 19 Dem lawmakers from New York State, she ranked dead last. Among the bills that failed were a federal overhaul of public housing, ban on fracking, and a mandate to provide full federal public health benefits to undocumented immigrants. And it goes on to say Democratic House Insider said many of AOC's colleagues found her approach alienating. Tweeting is easy, governing is hard. You need to have friends, you need to understand the committee process, you need to be willing to make sacrifices. Her first day in Congress, she decided to protest outside of Nancy Pelosi's office. So this basically, to explain this situation, right, it's obvious as to why she would be ranked so low in this situation. First of all, there's a lot of different aspects to getting things through the law, like public attention and support. But the thing is, with AOC, she came in kind of guns blazing. She did have that Nancy Pelosi thing. And what people have to understand is really in the House, you have to get, my understanding is, you have to get something out of committee to get it through, period. So it's got to make it through whatever committee it's in first. Otherwise, it can't get out to even get to a House floor vote. And so, who sits on these committees? Who are the people with power? People who have seniority. That's the way that the Democratic Party is set up. It's people with seniority who are on these chairs, who are on these committees, who are the chairs of these committees, people in power positions. AOC is now entering her second term, meaning she has zero seniority. So you know how Bernie Sanders right now is Senate Budget Chairman? That's because he's been in the Senate for a bit. So he actually has some experience there. And he is somebody who is a high-ranking member because of that, right? AOC, the squad members, have literally zero of that. There's a whole new wave of squad members that have had barely a couple months of experience. The OG ones have had 2 to 3 years of experience. It's nowhere near enough, seniority to have real power on these committees. So it's not surprising. So you have all these enemies. You're a progressive coming into the House, automatically guns blazing against Nancy Pelosi and these corporate Democrats. And even just recently, she had lost an election for one of the committee's seats because, it was a silent vote. It was a secret vote. And I remember, the guy over, Henry Cuellar, the guy over in Texas, he's a Blue Dog Democrat, and he voted against her because AOC supported Jessica Cisneros against him. So that's the kind of shit you're going to get. You know what I mean? And when you have policies and laws that are very progressive in a very dirtbag House of Representatives, how are you supposed to get that stuff through? So this is a common smear piece that was used against Bernie Sanders, although Bernie Sanders was incredibly effective. He was known as the Roll Call Amendment King. PolitiFact did verify this. And so what that means is he would have amendments to bills that would often have somewhat bipartisan support. He had that one pharma bill where amendment where it would allow the importing of drugs from other nations into the U.S. because they're far cheaper elsewhere. That didn't pass, but like John McCain, I think Ted Cruz, and some other Republicans voted in favor of it, indicating at least some bipartisan support. So he would get a ton of those passed. He was very, very effective. What's really interesting here, actually, is that it appears somebody who is really good is Rashida Tlaib, is what it appears to be, is really good at getting things through. And there was a piece down here, not really able to, right here. It says, fellow Democratic Socialist Squad members fared better than AOC. Representative Ilhan Omar sponsored 33 bills that also went nowhere, earning her 214th place, while Representative Rashida Tlaib saw 3 of her substantive bills advance into committee, with one ultimately becoming law. She ranked 92nd. So also what I want to say is not every legislator is going to be like this master legislator. So someone like a Rashida Tlaib or Ro Khanna might be better at getting legislation through, and that's just fine, right? AOC is obviously sort of more the public figure type of person, and people have to understand when it comes to being in government, it's not literally just making legislation. You have to be able to communicate to people. You have to be able to get people to join your movement. You have to be able to get people to change their minds and support the policies that you want. You have to get people to really be aware of things. So, she's doing more of all of that stuff, as, there may be people who are better at that legislative process. Like maybe Rashida is just better at that. Maybe Ro Khanna is better at that. And that's fine. But again, this is a really bad metric, and it was just something that was used essentially as a smear mechanism in order to smear AOC because obviously she's not going to get things passed. She has a lot of enemies in her own party. So for anybody who's like a quote-unquote progressive, maybe like a Jimmy Dore type of progressive, and you are to basically be saying, well, this is evidence of something. A big reason why she's quote-unquote one of the least effective ones is because she had made enemies in the Democratic Party. She went to that protest against Nancy Pelosi on day one. She stumped for and supported Jessica Cisneros over Henry Cuellar. So it's like, those are the reasons why. You know what I mean? So, and then for any conservative or conservative Democrat, and it says here that even some freshman members were better than her. Yeah, those freshman members probably already had ties to more centrist people, or they just had bills that are more milquetoast. So these kinds of things measure like substantive bills that are things that maybe like a centrist policy, a minor tweak in taxation or whatever, some kind of centrist piece of law getting passed. That's not something that you deserve credit for getting passed. And so those freshman members were probably just more centrist, most likely. That's most likely the scenario there. But again, yeah, this appears to be one of those situations, AOC smear tactics, similar to what they did to Bernie Sanders.